To be perfectly clear from the outset, this is not a martini. What this appears to be is a wine glass, maybe a red wine glass, filled with ice, some clear-ish murky liquid, and a sad little abused olive plopped into the bottom there. This meets zero of the physical properties of a martini, but it was in fact sold as one for $15 to a reporter who ordered a martini from the Trump Grill in New York City, the restaurant inside Trump Tower, in 2016. Ordering a drink at Donald Trump's restaurant was one reporter's kind of sideways attempt at trying to get a closer look into the inner workings of Trump's business empire right after he was elected president. And in a way, that sorry excuse for a martini turned out to be a pretty good scene setter for what it would be like over the next couple of years for reporters trying to learn more about what the president's business really was, what it was he was selling, and what it was people were buying. The lesson being that once you start peeking under the hood, a lot of what Trump said made his businesses so successful appeared to potentially be the product of fraud. During Trump's presidency, reporters at the New York Times published a series of deeply reported investigations into Trump's business and private finances. Much of their reporting was based on access to Trump tax documents. The Times found that during his time as a private businessman, he appears to have engaged in a series of tax schemes and tax evasion schemes and instances of what appeared to be outright tax fraud in order to boost his bottom line. Prosecutors are currently investigating the Trump business and his close associates for similar allegations of fraud, that Trump's business potentially hid the truth about his finances in order to con financial institutions into giving him money he otherwise wouldn't have been able to get. That's, of course, in addition to the felony charges currently pending against his company for tax fraud. But there's also the unique example of the president's hotel in Washington, D.C. Trump's D.C. hotel is actually an old U.S. post office building, so it's owned by the federal government. Trump's company pays the government to lease that building so that he can then run it as a hotel to make money off of it. But that arrangement, importantly, gives Congress oversight of this particular slice of his business, because the building's federal property. The House Oversight Committee has been investigating whether or not Trump's lease of that federal building constituted a conflict of interest, given that while he was president, he was leasing that building from the federal government that he himself was in charge of. Well, today the committee released new findings based on hundreds of pages of financial documents that tell an incredible story. What they've turned up appears to fit the other patterns we have seen from hard-won investigative reporting about potential fraud and obfuscation and financial sleight of hand, the things that have become synonymous with Donald Trump's businesses. According to the Oversight Committee today, Trump, quote, concealed certain debts from the federal government when he applied to lease the post office. The committee says he omitted hundreds of millions of dollars in debt, essentially to make himself look like a more qualified applicant to take over that lease. Once the hotel was up and running, Trump boasted that the hotel was a huge financial boon for his business. He said he made more than $150 million off that hotel during his presidency. But based on financial reports obtained by the committee, they say Trump's D.C. hotel actually lost more than $70 million during the course of his presidency. We also learned from the committee today about the existence of an sort of inexplicable and until now secret multi-million-dollar favor paid to the president from a foreign-owned bank called Deutsche Bank. In order to actually turn an old post office into a luxury hotel, Trump's business borrowed $170 million from Deutsche Bank. Under the terms of that loan, Trump was due to start repaying the principal on that loan in 2018. But look what the committee found out. Quote, in 2018, the terms of the loan were changed to allow Trump to defer any principal payments on the loan by 6 years. Under these revised terms, Deutsche Bank allowed the Trump Hotel to make just interest payments for an additional 6 years and delayed any principal payments to 2024. That's a multi-million-dollar handout to the Trump Hotel and to President Trump personally, who personally guaranteed those loans. And that was never previously known before. Why is a foreign-owned bank doing a multi-million-dollar personal favor to a sitting president while he's president? These revelations today are the latest in a string of revelation. Every time somebody takes a slice of the Trump business world and puts it under the microscope, it's not like, good gin and vermouth. It's like watered down who knows what in a wine glass, and I wouldn't eat that olive. Is it profit as the result of fraud and accounting tricks and careful omissions? Is that what this is? If so, is that legal? Does the D.C. hotel and its revelations portray a different portrait than what we have seen from previous investigative reporting, or is this just more of the same?